Hello guys, RevitWiz here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I will be showing you guys how to create splices in your reinforcement. When your slab is, for instance, the 50 meters long, we will set a specific maximum length for our reinforcement, and that will then generate our splices for us automatically within this specific layout that we have here. And then I'll also take you through the different types of reinforcement splices that you can allocate in Revit, and also how the lap lengths of these bars work and the formulas. So if you guys are interested, please stay tuned. Okay guys, let's start by drawing in our floor slab. So we're just going to do a 255 slab here and make it, let's say, 50 meters long and 24 meters wide. Place it and just say finish. Then I'm just going to hide the span symbol. Press EH on your keyboard so you can just see our reinforcement better. And I'm just going to dimension this so we keep in mind the length of this slab and the width. So now we're going to place our rebar. So we're going to click on the slab, go to rebar, and just say OK, and that will then bring in your reinforcement for your from your structural template. So mine is according to the South African standard. So these shape codes you might not be familiar with, but obviously you can use the ones that you need to in your country. So I'm going to just say near cover reference here and parallel to cover. I'm going to use maximum spacing for my bars, and they would be spaced for this example at 400 millimeters. So then I'm going to hover over the slab. I'm going to press the space bar button on my keyboard, and I'm going to just place the reinforcement. All right, so now we have a bar that is, let's say, 49.9 meters long. But obviously that is not possible in terms of the standards, and also actually getting this onto a truck and transporting it to your site. So now we need to go and set our splices. So how we do that is, if you just click on your reinforcement, there's an option here which says Splice Rebar. We can click on that, and then here you'll see it brings up this tab here for us, which we can now use to modify our splices. So the first option we're going to look at is the pick line option. This is where you can manually go and pick where you want to create your splice. So let's say I click here and maybe somewhere there and here and there. Now it's created our splices for us. But now you'll notice that these bars are obviously all different lengths, which might not be very productive in terms of scheduling and installing on site. So what we will do is it was just an example for you guys. So I'm just going to undo this, Control Z on my keyboard. I usually use this by lengths. So what this means is you have a maximum and a minimum length. So the maximum length of your bars is going to be 12 meters long, and the minimum is going to be 1 meter. So we usually use 12 meters in South Africa, and then the 1 meter, obviously you can choose whatever you want that to be. But let's have a look at what this actually does for us. So if we go and hover over our reinforcement, you can see it creates 4 lines on this page, or on this reinforcement. So this is where it's going to actually splice our reinforcement for us, and it's going to have the bars spaced evenly, or not evenly. The lengths of the bars are going to be 12 meters max, and then obviously the one on the right you can see is going to be a different length. So if I then click the mouse button, it generates the splices for me. So then if I just say escape on my keyboard and I say finish here, we can now go and check. If I click on this bar, I'm just going to place the bending detail here so that you guys can see. So I'll just click on the other bars to bring that detail up for us. There you can see that we have our different lengths. So the 3 in the middle is all the same, and the 2 on the edges, they differ. And you can also see what Revit does for you is, because we've placed our reinforcement in the beginning as a shapecode which has hooks on the end. It leaves that hook for us here, and internally it just creates a shapecode 20 for us. So this is the South African standard. A shapecode 20 is just a straight bar, which then it creates for us, and then here on this edge again it keeps that bar for us with the hook on. So this is a very useful tool. Then we can just go and look into this a bit further, how we can modify our splices. So if you click on your bars again and just say splice rebar, you'll notice that if we go to modify splices and if I click on the splice line, you can actually go into the properties here on the right and do the drop down and see there's a 60 diameter lap splice and a 60 staggered diameter lap splice, and then an end-to-end splice. So the end-to-end splice is when you actually want to use a coupler. So if I click on that one, you can see for that specific line where the splice occurs, these two rebar sets, they meet up in the middle, so they are end-to-end. Then if I click down this drop down again and go 60D staggered, you can see it actually staggers your reinforcement at the middle of this intersection. So just to compare to the preset one, is the splice happens over the middle. This one is staggered on either side of the middle. Okay, so I like using this staggered method. And then the 60D is obviously the splice length, so we can confirm that. So if I just measure the actual splice length, that's 1.2 meters. So this bar is a shapecode, or a Y20 rather. It's 20 millimeters thick. So the formula basically says to us, if I just click here again, 60D, so it means 60 times the 20, which will give you the 1200 millimeters, which is 1.2 meters. And now I can show you, if we just go here and say edit type, you will notice that there is a stagger length multiplier. So what that just means is the 1.3 is the length that it then splices away from the middle of this specific area here. So I'm just going to click OK, and I'm going to dimension this and try and explain it to the best of my ability. So I'm going to dimension from the end of the bar here to the end of the bar there. And then I'm just going to dimension from those two bar edges and also from that edge to the middle. And then I'm just going to change the scale a bit so we can read this a bit better. Okay, so let's just go back into our edit mode. There we go. So the 1.3, what that just means is if I take 60 times the diameter, which gives me the 1200, and I say 1200 times 1.3, that would then give me 1560. That's the 1560 you see there. So that 1.3 means from the bar, which then stops just to the right of the middle point here, to the edge of your second bar next to it is 1.560 meters. So if you wanted to change that 1560 length, and let's say we change this to 1.5, and I say apply, that would become 1.8. So then once again, the formula is, let's say 1.2 times the 1.5, and that will give you the 1800. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So then the reason why I just detailed the 300 and the 600 is because if you take the 1.8 minus the 1.2, that will just give you the 600, and half of that is 300. It's just, there's quite a few ways of looking at this formula, but this I found the easiest way to explain it to you guys. Okay, so then I'll just say okay, and I'll say finish. And there you have, let me just change the scale. And there you have your reinforcement spliced. So you'll notice this one is staggered and that one isn't. So to have that one also staggered, just click on your bars again, splice, and then modify splices. I'll click on that and I'll change it to 60, and you can just click on those two and also change it to the staggered. So you'll also note you can create your own one. So let's say I click on it, I say edit, always say duplicate when you want to create a new one. And let's say I wanted to make this 40 times diameter. I'll say okay, and now I'll just put in 40 here, and I'll say apply and okay. Now we can compare this. So you'll notice because we duplicated this, that's 40 times diameter. This one is still 60 times diameter. So this one will remain 60 times diameter. And then if I just go and measure the splice length now, that would be 800 mils, which would make sense because we would say the 20 times the 800, which, oh, not the 800, the 20 times the 40, apologies, 20 times the 40 here gives you the 800. And you'll notice if I say finish here and I would change this bar, let's say to a smaller bar, something like that, it automatically updates the splice length. If you take 12 times 40, it's going to give you the 480. So that is the strength that you have within Revit when it gets to the splices of reinforcement. But now you'll notice this bar has become, the length has become more than 12 meters. So you can just go here by splice rebar again, and you can go and just remove these splices and just splice it again so that it is still within the 12-meter range. Just say finish, and there you go. We've spliced it now, but our splices then obviously default back to the preset splice. But guys, that is the quickest and easiest way I can explain to you how the splices work. You can see there we have our splice bars. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you guys like to see more of this type of content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers guys.